Hello and welcome to the Arash Markazi Show, presented by the Sporting Tribune on the mightier 1090 ESPN Radio in Southern California, 98.5 The Bet in Las Vegas, and the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760 in Hawaii. I am at Mountain West Conference Media Day right here in Circa, one of our dear sponsors, but all around our region. We got Adrian Hernandez in Las Vegas. We got Brandon Deutsch and Grant Mona in Southern California. So, Adrian, it's still hot here, but how are you holding up, my friend?
Listen, I'm on the other side of town. You're holding it down at Circa. Thank you for not showing out the guns being by Stadium Swim. We'll do that eventually. But you're day one Mountain West Conference is good for you. Just an update on me, everyone. Shipping information has been emailed to me with my Cleveland Cavaliers Summer League champion.
No way. Come on.
We'll go from here to Brandon and check in with him in LA. What's up, my guy?
I'm chilling, man. I'm chilling. Lots of good sports stories we're going to cover. We're going to go over. And, yeah, America wins when the Yankees lose. Hopefully the Angels, can keep winning. The Yankees can keep losing.
Wow. That's a pretty good intro. in my case, the Dodgers are actually playing right now, which is actually pretty cool. It's the first time I think this has happened. They're actually at 1-0 already. Pretty good day so far. Well, maybe it's one. That's the last time I checked. Maybe it's not. But pretty good day so far.
You guys
It is an amazing day.
Sometimes we air in different parts in all of our lovely affiliates, and on YouTube they can watch it for whatever. But anyway, and also I do want to say too, Mountain West Conference Media Days going on. That's what the noise in the background is. But there's a lot of good content on our Twitter right now at the Sporting Trib. Check it out. My guy Arash is posting a lot of goodies, especially if you're into helmet fashion. I know we don't king shame around here. Some people get really into college football helmets, including me, and that UNLV looks mighty sexy in my opinion.
Hey, what's the win total going to be on UNLV this year, Adrian, before Arash goes?
Damn, bro, can we get into the helmets before we got to get into the win?
Oh, my gosh. I'm a straight shooter. I'm going to ask straight to the point, but go Arash. We'll give Adrian some time to think about this.
All right, Brandon, now quarterback in the show. That's all good. Listen, the helmets are one of my favorite things because I will say this, and not just because they are all part of the Sporting Tribune family. I think three of the hottest helmets, cleanest helmets, San Diego State, Hawaii. Now, UNLV, it's not that the helmet is amazing, but the back decal where you have the Welcome to Las Vegas sign. Again, I like when they have a little bit of personality with these helmets. I think that helps a ton. But listen, the San Diego State helmet is my number one helmet. That is my favorite helmet. So listen, pumped for Mountain West Conference. The biggest thing that we've kind of had to get past at the beginning of the media days, again, 2-day media day, first day being Wednesday, second day Thursday, is the status of San Diego State. Again, San Diego State thought they had a deal in place with the Pac-12. They thought that, listen, we got to notify the Mountain West by June 30th and let them know that we intend on leaving and joining the Pac-12. The Pac-12 said, not so fast, my friend. They don't have a media deal, which, by the way, that is crazy to me. That going into Pac-12 Media Day, they don't have a media deal. I mean, I think everyone thought that was sort of the drop dead date, that at some point prior to Friday's media day, which will again also be here in Las Vegas, that'll be at Resorts World. But you're going to tell people what your future media deal looks like. You're going to tell people where to watch the games. And the fact of the matter is they don't have that media deal yet. And because of that, I think everything is in limbo. The other interesting thing to note is that when the Pac-12 will look to expand, they're going to be looking directly at the schools here at Circa. And that's why it's very interesting that both of these media days are in Las Vegas, because if the Pac-12 is looking to expand, they are certainly looking at bringing in San Diego State. Obviously, they've already had conversations. You definitely want a team in Southern California. If you're losing USC and you're losing UCLA, you want to have a team in Southern California. And to be honest, San Diego State's on the come up. Again, the basketball program just went to the Final Four They lost in the championship game, and the football program just moved into a beautiful new stadium. So I think, listen, San Diego State's on the come up. The question is, who is that second team? Is it UNLV because of Las Vegas? Is it perhaps Hawaii, because you want to expand? Let's go around the room and kind of start there, because I think we are in a very critical juncture in terms of what the future of college football will look like. I definitely think we are going towards 4 big conferences. Again, we've had the Power 5 and all that. I mean, but the way things are going, there's going to be 4 major conferences in college sports. And but listen, guys, if you're the Pac-12 commissioner, you have a lot on your plate right now. Who are you going to go after?
And I'll start it off, and just to let people know too. So when it comes to the Pac-12 and that TV contract, the reason why we're bringing up, hey, they don't have a new deal is because it expires next July. So there's just a year left. But when you're picking, and let's say we're going 2, I think San Diego State's a good call. It's had a successful basketball program for years. Even back when Kawhi Leonard was over there, and then before that, even too. And I want to say UNLV, but the thing about Las Vegas is that whether there's a team here or not, because it's Las Vegas, it's not like they're not going to hold their Pac-12 Media Day here. They're not going to use T-Mobile for the basketball tournaments. They're not going to use Allegiant. So it's not like they need UNLV to kind of be like, hey, you can use all of our stuff now because you're in this city. But even then, I would have to go UNLV as opposed to Utah State or some of these other programs in the Mountain West. So it would be San Diego State and UNLV right off the top of my head.
I'll add. So yeah, San Diego State makes the most sense. They just got to the national championship basketball wise, with UCLA leaving, which is a basketball powerhouse now. One can say, with like Mick Cronin consistently going to be in the Sweet 16. They're leaving. SCU's gotten better leaving. Having a team like San Diego State that can at least bring media value and contention in the Pac-12. They're ready for it basketball wise. Football, I don't know, but I mean, they're certainly serviceable. So, and the Pac-12 is not going to get. It's going to be not a great conference once UCLA and USC leave. Like, just that as a national conference, in my opinion. Now, it's no disrespect. And UNLV would be the team I'm looking at next, but don't count out Boise State. Like Adrian said yesterday, Boise State's a team that's really been contending in basketball for their conference for a long time. They've been consistent. Football, they have the pedigree. They have like the Kellen Moore type guys that have been in that program, the football, the blue field, whatever, all that stuff. I wouldn't count them out. And of course, Fresno State, who I think can compete in both football and basketball, which is important as well. Those are the teams I'm looking at. I think Nevada's a wash. New Mexico, absolutely not, with what's went on in the last year with them and the scandals and everything. And Colorado State, Utah State, Wyoming, Air Force, like, come on now. It's between those 4 that I said.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I mean, San Diego State, it just makes sense to have another SoCal team in there. If you're taking 2 out, it's the logical choice. I would love to see UNLV get in there, but I don't know if they have enough. I guess you would say firepower at this point. I would love to have a Vegas team in the Pac-12, especially if you're getting rid of 2 SoCal teams. Las Vegas, I always say, is like kind of like a sister to SoCal. It's kind of just like attached at the hip. Hawaii, I don't think, logistically, I would love to see. It probably wouldn't work, but I would love to see it. The football team, the baseball team's even competitive. I played actually a few of these schools. So Fresno State, I've played. They're always competitive in football and baseball. So, from the basketball aspect, having a powerhouse like San Diego State, who's kind of on the rise, that would be pretty good for the Pac-12. I know it's not going to be as good. You're taking away 2 powerhouse teams from that conference in the Pac-12, but adding at least 1 back would kind of get back the popularity, in my opinion.
The sleeping giant, I've always felt, is Hawaii. And I get logistically, you're looking at a 5 to 6 hour flight depending on where you are, but it's connection again to Southern California, Vegas, but also kind of the middle ground if you want to get to Japan as well. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people when they travel, take that 5 hour flight to Hawaii, have a little fun for like a day or 2, and then make a 5 hour or 5 or 6 hour flight to Japan. Again, one of the things a lot of these conferences are looking to do is expand their footprint beyond just the United States. They want to expand into Mexico, perhaps into Canada and beyond. So I think that's really the importance here of the Pac-12 when you look to at San Diego State. Yes, it's in Southern California, but it's obviously the close proximity to Mexico, having potentially a football game there, perhaps having a basketball game there, really broadening your horizons. Again, the Pac-12 is really trying to do a good job of this. They've played games in China and things like that, but we're at a really critical juncture here with the future of college sports. Where do you think we are there? Do you like the trend of having 4 big conferences? It does seem like everything will be consolidated at some point here soon.
Go ahead, Adrian.
You bring up the consolidation, and it's weird having this conversation because I'll ask everybody, like, in 5 years, do we even know if the Pac-12 is going to be a conference? Because, like, think of it like, I guess, like the movie industry where Disney owns all these different properties, and then there's just one other movie. Like there's 2 big giants, right? It's Amazon and Apple, which is it's going to be the Big Ten, the SEC, and everyone else. Because now it's no holds barred. When USC and UCLA are now in the Big Ten, like the Big 12 and the Pac-12, I don't know if you guys are going to exist anymore. And even the streaming deal is so important. Like, it baffles me. I've been to hotels in many parts of this country, and somehow on the basic cable, I got the Big Ten network. I have to buy a Google Pixel and have the weirdest internet service provider to be able to have access to see the Pac-12 network. Like, I don't.
It's the worst. Yeah.
So it's the worst, and now it doesn't mean as much because these streaming.
Oh, it's done.
So with the change of this, it's really like, what are we doing? So I don't know if the Pac-12 is going to be a thing in less than 5 years. Now, do I like it? I every year we go into this and we understand that there's going to be at most 6 teams that have a realistic shot to win the national championship, right? We know our Georgias, our Ohio States, our Alabamas, and insert Notre Dame or Oregon, like whatever these teams shuffle.
USC, yeah.
Since when? What year? It's been years.
Bro, like, are you talking like USC is not going to be competitive this year?
No, it's been a long time. It's
been
last
year.
It's been a century since UNLV won anything in any sport. So I mean, you're bringing up, you're trying to talk crap about SC. Like, UNLV hasn't been relevant in anything since freaking Tarkanian was there. Whatever his name.
I didn't go to UNLV. No one was bringing up UNLV. That's very.
I'm just gonna put that out there. You coming out SC? We're gonna stand up for ourselves as Trojans, huh, Ross?
We're trying to have a conversation here. Please stop deflecting with like nonsense. What is UNLV?
I'm not deflecting with nonsense. I'll answer the question. The question is
USC was congratulations. It's been a long time. That's the point.
But that's also deflected.
No, it's not. My point is that we all know going into a year that there's a small amount of teams that have a realistic chance to win the national championship. And these rivalries and these random games and seeing Hawaii at 1 a.m. and Mac Tuesdays and all this stuff, like, if that stuff goes away, like, that takes away the charm of college football, which plays such a huge part into why people love it more than the NFL. And it's just this new era of, like, my son's not going to play NCAA football. He's not going to know what Mac Tuesday is and all these random things. But at the end of the day, on Saturdays, we're all going to be in our TVs, no matter what the construct is. So it's a confusing situation.
Yes, but I wanted to add too, before Arash and Grant go, like, this is becoming the NFL with the power conferences. It's become media, like, obviously flying from SC, UCLA, like SoCal to the Midwest, to the Midwest, to Ohio State, to whether it's Illinois, Chicago in Illinois. So I mean, it's like there's a lot of flying, and it's more of an NFL oriented thing, and that's fine. The media, it's all a lot of money. At the same time, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of Big 12 and Pac-12 coming to a agreement eventually, because I think there's still some power teams like Oregon. I can't imagine them playing San Diego State. I mean, it would be 75-0. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. Like, Oregon and UW and teams like that need to be in a conference with like TC, like legitimate teams. No offense to San Diego State and Fresno State, like legit teams that can compete with them on a nightly basis. I think they need to move to that power conference together, in my opinion, eventually.
Yeah,
yeah.
I was just going to say, I just think that, we're headed more to, I've said this in the past, I don't remember when, but it was just that I think we're headed towards this 2-conference type of deal where we kind of see in the professional leagues where it's Eastern and Western, or it's National American. I don't think that it's going to be that way in the college aspect, but I do think that we're moving towards something like that, maybe 3, maybe 2. I don't think that it's going to be, every mid-major is going to be in a good conference, or, all these smaller schools are going to be in like the Mountain West. I think that we're moving towards, 5 or less conferences. You can't keep it, to 20, or you can't keep it to 2. You got to kind of find a middle ground. So I think we're moving a little bit towards that. So, it's going to be tough because there's these big schools that need to be in these big conferences, but there's also these smaller schools that, the mid majors that are in these big conferences that still want to stay in. So, that's just my opinion on it. I think we're moving more towards, lesser conferences.
Yeah. I mean, listen, and the college game is, you got your blue bloods, in college football, and they have their like ebbs and flows, and it really depends on who the coach is and what's happening. And so, just to kind of put a bow on that, certainly, following Pete Carroll's tenure and when they were under sanctions, it was a very dark period. I think it's pretty clear to see, like, anyone who's like watching college football and what Lincoln Riley's doing and who they have and who they had last year and who they have this upcoming season, they are a contender. We'll see. We'll see what that means. We'll also see how they do in the Big Ten. But I think for the big thing for USC is, their last season here in the Pac-12. I think that they have a real shot to be in the college football playoff, which obviously has to be the goal. To your point, Brandon, and I thought this was a big moment for TCU. They had an amazing run, but it was this really bad moment, I think, for a TCU and schools like that when they got blown out the way that they did. They got blown out the way that they did. You want to have a competitive game, and I think anyone who's wanting to not see 2 conferences, and I think you're right, Grant. I do think it'll be like the American football, conference and the National Football Conference or something like that, where, you have maybe. I mean, it's not going to just be 30 teams. Maybe it's perhaps more than that. But, do we like that? I mean, it's very clear college sports is becoming more and more like professional sports. When you look at the contracts, when you look at the consolidation, do we like that?
Well, as it should, in my opinion. I mean, we finally had a place where college players can get paid through NIL deals. And for years, the NCAA was profiting off the image and likeness of players. So it is very similar to the NFL. Obviously, it doesn't get as much media attention and as many viewers as the NFL, because the NFL is king in the United States specifically, but it does get the second amount, and more than basketball a lot of the time. So I feel like it moving toward this was inevitable, and I don't mind it. However, if I'm a young kid and let's say I'm a little bit under recruited and I want to play in the NFL, and there's only 30 teams out there that are in this, future where it's 30, 35, 40 teams that really are on the TV. I'm not saying you can't get scouted, it just hurts your chances. And I feel like right now, having all these teams that compete against each other in Division One, whether that's how many teams it is, well over 100, you have chances to go out there and get noticed. I feel like that would be less and less. It'd be more like, Georgia's going to have 100 guys getting drafted or something like that in a few years. You know what I'm saying?
So, Adrian, I mean, do you like that college football is becoming more and more like pro football? I mean, these guys have commercial deals now.
Well, I mean, I just think that, like, when Grant said, hey, there can't be 20 conferences, I'm like, well, why not? Like, it gives something for Mountain West fans to have. It gives something to the All-American Conference, the MAC, like whatever these smaller conferences, it gives them an opportunity to at least, hey, let's dominate in our little small piece of the big pie, because we're never going to win the big pie. You know what I'm saying? So it's that charm and those rivalries are kind of what make college football so special. So when you take that away, I'm interested to see what the fan bases have. Like, we're all spoiled here with the teams that we follow are the mega powers and have the lineage and stuff. But like you're at the Mountain West Conference, they don't have that. You know what I'm saying? A Texas Tech fan or whatever, like whatever teams you want to throw out, like they need to, or even smaller than that, like these mid markets, these mid regions, they need to have something, you know, for the fan bases, and you take that away and don't even give them a shot. Like, what's the point? It's what makes March Madness so special. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. You know, I mean, and I think this is why I have no problem with it, because for years and years and years, college football has been the second most popular sport in this country behind the National Football League. And so it's really great that these guys are getting paid and getting what they deserve. All right, let's leave it there for now. When we come back, it'll be our money buckets in the second segment. We're kind of reversing things when we come back right here on the Mightier 1090 in Southern California, the Bet in Las Vegas, and the Hawaii Sports Radio Network. Hello and welcome to the Arash Markazi Show, presented by the Sporting Tribune on the Mightier 1090 ESPN Radio in Southern California, the Bet in Las Vegas, and the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760 in Hawaii. Just as a reminder, if you have a question or comment, just want to win tickets to an upcoming game in Southern California, Las Vegas, or Hawaii, call our hotline 310-400-0340. Listen, normally we'd go out to the Circa Sports guest hotline, but my goodness, I'm actually at Circa Sports. I'm actually at Circa Las Vegas. Beautiful. By the way, this ballroom that I'm in right now, 2 years ago was a construction zone, and they had a March Madness viewing party here. So it's really amazing to see what's become of this place. 2-day media day here, Mountain West Conference, going into Friday's big media day at Resorts World. So Money Buckets is joining us. We kind of flip things around. You're coming on segment 2, my friend. I wanted to get your thoughts on, kind of put a bow on what we talked about in the first segment. Basically, college sports, and again, it's probably been this way popularity-wise, but it being treated more as a professional sport, certainly from a football standpoint, in terms of the consolidation of perhaps 2 big mega conferences. And where does that leave a lot of the other schools? Again, do you like this?
I think that, you know, it was always headed in this direction. So it's not so much my cup of tea, but I understand that, you know, with money being involved and the amounts of money being involved, this is the direction that it was probably headed to. What consensus did you guys reach about that?
And I'll go real quick, and then we'll go around the room. And, you know, my feeling is a lot like yours. It was already headed in this direction. If you told me to rank the most popular sports in the country, I would have said college football is the number 2, right behind the National Football League, and then college hoops is somewhere behind the NBA. And I think the one and done rule somewhat helped them in terms of, you know, you're getting, and like even if they're there for 1 year, you're going to get amazing talent. So at least from those 2 sports, they've always been 2 of the most popular sports, drawing millions and billions of dollars. Why shouldn't they be treated like a professional sport?
I agree. I'm gonna miss the old schoolness of college football and some of the traditions and things like that when it pertains to college football, because everything's changing. And that's kind of sad. And by the way, you know, every day on YouTube, since we've been on here for the past 2 weeks, you've seen the Circa logo always, because we're presented by them. But just to let people know, you get an inside look at Circa right now if you're on YouTube, because Arash is there in the living flesh. And even Armand, who is over here without a tank top today. It's a special occasion. But we'll go to Brandon too, and he'll kind of give us a quick thought on just everything going on in college football.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mentioned this in the first segment. It's more like the NFL. I get it. I love that guys are getting paid. I mean, DJ, what is it, Ugalele or something, or Ugalele? What? How do you pronounce his last name?
I'm not sure.
You know? You guys are DJ. Okay, so he threw 95 at high school, got drafted by the Dodgers in the 20th round. There is no way he was even thinking about signing, because he's going to make 10 times that in NIL in 1 year or 2 years, right? Like,
yeah.
And he doesn't want to play in the minor leagues. No one wants to. Everyone wants to play in the MLB. No one wants to play in the minor leagues. You don't get paid. A lot of teams don't give you resources. So college football is becoming this place where you can monetize a lot, and I think it's great. I think it's great for the athlete. I think it's great for personal development, because what's going on, I think it's indicative of what's going on in sports media, how our brand is the most important. It's the same thing with athletes, and they're starting it early, and that's important. So I think as a whole, this is good. We mentioned that it could go down to 30, 35 teams playing in the the big conferences, and everything else being secondary, which I don't fully agree with. I like Adrian's point about the Mountain West. It's good for competition and pride to just go out there and dominate your conference versus, it's important. That is important, and it should get noticed as well. But I think the future of this is inevitable, like Armand was saying.
Yeah. Guys, we've been talking about Damian Lillard for a while, but now we have to talk about the other big superstar who's been rumored to be traded, only because our very own, the Sporting Tribune's Joey Lynn, has reported that James Harden would like to play with his old teammate with the Oklahoma City Thunder, Russell Westbrook. Joey, obviously, very tight with the Westbrook contingent, and so I totally believe his reporting on this front. And then Bill Plaschke of the Los Angeles Times chimed in today with his thoughts, and he believes that they should. That the Clippers are in a basically Hail Mary, do or die, win or go home. This is the last season situation. I think there's 0% chance that this works, but I think from a entertainment in car chase / car crash, which we love here in Los Angeles, that I think that this trade will happen, and I don't know what it looks like, but I think that there's enough pieces involved here. All right, so Adrian, I'll start with you. Listen, I think that this trade's gonna happen. I think that the Clippers have. Here's partly why. There's very little chance that we're going to see all of these players healthy at the same time. So you bring in Kawhi and Paul George. One or both of those guys are going to get hurt in the postseason. So you may have a playoff run with the Clippers where it's basically just James Harden and Russell Westbrook. So
Let me tell you something.
We'll see how that goes.
That's going to be a shorter run than me actually running. Okay. Listen, around the horn legend Bill Plaschke, no disrespect, but what are we talking about right here? You said it's like a car chase, and then you said car crash, and I interrupted you, and I'm going to say it again. No, it would be a car crash. What are we doing with James Harden? Like what at this point, if we have to ask the same questions 10 years into someone's career, we know what the answer is. Enough with this, bro. Stay in Philadelphia. Maurice, your boy, is going to keep you paid, and leave the rest of the league alone. Honestly, if by choice you're telling me the roster's intact or close to it with what the Clippers have now, and you take your chances with your two superstars that have been getting hurt, or you add James Harden to the mix, you stick with what you got, bro. What is this?
No.
Like, it's hard right now in my brain to fully comprehend why this is a good decision. It really is. And I'll leave it at that. I don't want to take up everyone's time.
Armand,
go next. Buckets.
You're chilling.
Yeah. I have a gripe with you, Arash, because you started this by calling him a superstar. How dare you, Arash?
Whoa, wait, hold
no,
on.
not anymore, Arash. Not anymore. Come on. Star is pushing it, all right? But superstar, absolutely. At this stage of his career, absolutely not. Also, yeah, well, no, because superstar, I think, is reserved for star. So we had a report by Jake Fisher saying that James Harden is expected at this point to return or to report to Philadelphia's training camp. So we always, every day, are having conflicting reports. Why would the Sixers, they're in a similar position to the Clippers. If they trade Harden, Joel Embiid is probably going to be pretty frustrated. Although, keeping Harden, they're probably not going to go anywhere anyways. So it's like, both of those teams are kind of stuck in a really difficult spot. Also, if Harden goes to the Clippers, hypothetically speaking, who is playing shooting guard between him and Westbrook? Because Harden was so ball dominant in Philadelphia, and Westbrook, we've seen this movie when he doesn't have the ball in his hands with the Lakers. What happened to him? He turned into an absolute abomination. So who's going to sacrifice if they do play together? They both need the ball a lot. But I agree that it would be entertaining as heck.
Yes.
And also our friend Grant Mona he's basically like, you know what, let's do it. And I can't believe that, we've reached that point with Clipper fans, but I personally have no allegiance to the Clippers or Lakers, and I just want to see the Clippers have some success because I feel bad for them. So I hope it works if it does happen, but I don't think it will work. Absolutely not.
Forget the Clippers. I want the Tribune to have some success. So you know what? Come to the Clippers so we can have all these articles and Joey Lynn can be working overtime. I'm sorry, Brandon. Go ahead.
That's a good point.
No, I look. I think it's a twofold thing. I mean, these Clipper fans are so delusional on Twitter. Like, I responded on Joey's thing, and I said, "Okay, great. So Russell Westbrook's gonna have to come off the bench, right? You cannot start Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George. It's just not basketball. It doesn't work. If you know ball, if you've played like me, if you played like Armand, if you watch the game, even you know that that's not going to work. 4 ball dominant players, especially Westbrook and Harden." And my response was, and people were like, "Oh, you don't know ball, man. Like, it can work, blah, blah, blah. Kawhi and George don't need the ball in their hands." I'm like, okay, so you just proved you haven't watched basketball the past couple of years because they've been virtually non-existent when they're off ball, right? That's the big thing. So what I'll say here is, like, it's not going to work unless Westbrook has to come off the bench.
There's a trade. There's a trade.
No, Westbrook has to come off the bench. He just does if they get James Harden. And I'm just saying, I think it can help during the regular season because James Harden is still a star in the regular season, but we know he turns into a pumpkin in the playoffs. You know, I hate to say it. All but like one game where he had 35 and led the Celtics to 1-0 and acted like, "Oh, don't celebrate. We got more work to do." Like, dude, he should have celebrated because he was never going to win that series.
Yeah.
I got
he had 2 really good games. So yeah, he had 2 really good games, and every other game he turned into a pumpkin, like you said, Brandon. So, I mean, you can't rely on a player like that. I do think that if you're comparing him to Westbrook and their fits with Kawhi and Paul George, obviously I think Harden at this stage is a better playmaker and better fit next to those 2 guys. But him and Westbrook, could they be on the court at the same time? I mean, and also, you know, regular season is about guys that defend and play on a nightly basis and play hard. That team, I I don't know, but it would be entertaining for sure. And it would help the Tribune. You're right. That would be.
Well, listen, at that point, I think that they become a team that the entire country's talking about, and not because they're one of the top 5 teams in the league or anything like that. But there will be a constant drama of, you know, what's James Harden going to do? What's Russell Westbrook going to do? Well, you know, Kawhi's not going to really talk, but, you know, what's up with Kawhi? What's up with Paul George? At this point, you are in a Hail Mary situation with the Clippers. And I the big thing about them is, what do they do with their contracts? I mean, I as crazy as it sounds, I mean, I fully expect them to give both of those guys max deals. Because what's the alternative? I don't know if you're the Clippers. Again, you've put together a really good team on paper, but I mean, do you just let those guys walk?
It seems like the trend now in the NBA is you re-sign the guy, you extend their contract, and then you keep the asset and you figure it out later. Which, you know, I feel like that's kind of it has happened in the past, obviously, but I feel like it's more of a new thing where, you know, my team, the Bulls, Vucevic, I don't think we should have necessarily kept him, but you keep the asset and you hope to maybe figure it out later. I feel like that's where the Clippers are headed as well. But man, at some point your fans are going to become numb to running it back and to doing the same thing. And, you know, especially if you're not having success doing it. You know, we go back to the Lou Williams Montrezl Harrell team. That was an 8 seed, but that was such a fun.
There was no expectation. Exactly. There was no expectation with that team.
Warriors. Anyway.
Yeah.
And if people think that Paul George and Russell Westbrook, like, I don't know, PG wants to play with Russ. People are more concerned about Russ's just the way people talk about his career and all people want to play with him. Like, I don't care about any of that. This team, like, you're better off keeping what you have as opposed to going for Harden and trying to make all this. Like, this is not NBA 2K. This is not my team.
No.
All right, you know what I'm saying? And they put them in position, by the way, with the Clippers.
Yeah, look, I mean, like I mentioned, Harden's going to help during the season, right? He's a regular season guy. So I think that's their intention. If they get hurt, they want a guy who can lead the team. You know, more than Westbrook can. Certainly more serviceable with his jumper than Westbrook is at this stage in his career. So I think that's the thinking. The issue I have is, like Armand brings up, defensively, you're a sound team. Ty Lue's a defensive coach. You can get Harden and Westbrook. You can give away Powell, probably Terrence Mann. And Terrence Mann's one of the best role players in the NBA. And Norman Powell is a guy that averages 20 plus points per game, right? Or 18 plus points per game, and is a good fit because a three and some D, not much, but definitely three, and can score. So to me, you're giving up a lot in this trade. I think it benefits Philadelphia. I know we say Joel Embiid can't really I'd much rather have no Harden and have Powell, Terrence Mann, and a couple role players, and maybe a Boston Jr. and some salary than James Harden and choking in the playoffs again.
I have a question for Arash. Do you think at any point Joel Embiid, let me rephrase it. Can Joel Embiid be the number one guy on a championship team? Because that's kind of where we're headed.
Yeah, I don't think so, but that doesn't mean that he can't. But I mean, by the way, that is a hard thing to do. There's a lot of very talented players who cannot be the number one guy on a championship team, but could very easily be the number two person on a championship team. I mean, to say that I don't want to say that he can't, but in my view, from what I've seen so far, definitely in big game situations, he does not appear to be a guy who could be the number one guy on a championship team. Clearly could be a number two guy, but I think he's also differential to who if Philadelphia wants to bring in a guy who can be the number one option. So listen, I mean, it doesn't mean that he can. Nikola Jokic dealt with the same thing. I think up until this run, even this year, which is as ridiculous as it is, and Brandon can touch on the numbers, Jokic should have won the most valuable player. At some point late in the season, it was ridiculous where they started to talk about the playoffs in championships. It's like it's a regular season MVP. But anyways, Joel Embiid, in my view, he's he is a superstar. I don't think he's the number one guy for a championship team.
I mean, but they also said that about Jokic and Antetokounmpo.
Exactly. No.
It's true.
MVP, so. Giannis, I never believed that. Giannis, I believe, was going to win multiple. Again, he's won one. In my view, he's the best player in the league. Again, I mean,
I think the difference, though, is Embiid's injury history, and now he's a little older than when we said that about those guys. I definitely didn't think Jokic could be, the headliner on a title team, and I was wrong about that. And Embiid could definitely do the same thing, but time is running out, man. This guy, the amount of times he falls on the court, and just every fall is scary because of his size. I just worry that, and then, if Harden leaves and Embiid wants a trade to New York, for example, if you're the Knicks, do you sacrifice a ton of assets to get a guy like that who, hasn't really proven it fully in the playoffs?
If you can just have Brunson and Embiid alone, that's a contender, because I think Brunson has positioned himself into being one of the more underrated players in basketball. Everything he does is right, and people hate on him because he's little and he's tiny, and it's just like he's really good. But I'll say this. I agree with Arash. I don't think Embiid can be the number one. We did say I always thought Jokic and Giannis could be the number one on a title team. I just, they weren't healthy. Embiid, it's because of his injury, not because of his talent, right? Like talent-wise, he definitely could. He's always hurt every single postseason. We saw it in the series against the Celtics. He got hurt. Like, he gets hurt every postseason, and that's a problem, right? So that's just my thought on it.
Yeah. I also think that to go back to the original thing with Harden, if you're going to make that trade, I'm assuming Terrence Mann is going to be in there, because you're not going to trade Batum, Morris. Like, you try to keep Terrence Mann, and it's a weird situation. Like, it's a weird situation, especially when you consider the rumors that Terrence Mann was the reason why they didn't trade for your boy in Toronto, Van Fleet. And it's just, look at what it is now, and what the situation is. You're going for a Hail Mary, but I just don't think it's the right move, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go.
I was going to say, if they had the same contract, I would take Van Vliet over Harden. But given what we know now about his 3 years, $130 million, I think I would rather have Harden on a 1-year contract Which I'm the biggest James Harden.
He signed that now. That's different. Not back then. Like
yeah, that's true.
That's true. In that situation, is what I'm saying.
Then I would take Fred.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Terrence Mann that I think a lot of Clipper fans think back on it, I certainly do, is his performance in that Utah Jazz series where you're thinking, you're kind of viewing like maybe potentially like a future star there. What the Clippers are in a very precarious position here as well when you look at where they're going to move into. Again, this is their last year at Staples/Crypto.com Arena. They're moving into a brand new $2 billion arena. The reason that that's significant is they've really had a tough time, to be honest, guys, selling tickets at Crypto. And I don't want to knock the Clippers, but like not a week goes by during the season that I don't get a call from their ticket office saying, hey, can we interest you in, season tickets or tickets at this price, half price? And it's like they really want to be able to sell out their building. So if that means, Kawhi, they got to pay more for Kawhi than they would like to, or Paul George, they need headliners when they go into the $2 billion Intuit Dome. Again, this is their last year at Crypto.com Arena, and then they move into their own brand new home. They want to have that star power. So, while we've kind of viewed this as a Hail Mary year, I think there's a chance that this team, this core group, could be back. All right. That's all the time we have for today. Let's do it again tomorrow. Until then, this is Arash Markazi saying stay safe and stay healthy.